What's up, fight fans? It is Monday, August 14th, 2017, and this is the Monday Morning Analyst here on MMAfighting.com. Welcome. I'm the host of this podcast. My name is Luke Thomas, and I appreciate you guys joining me here today. Three parts to the podcast usually an overview in the first segment, multimedia evidence in the second, and a look ahead at what's coming up in the third. Going to do things a little bit differently today because there wasn't really any MMA of major significance over the weekend, but there was, of course, that sparring footage that got put out, and I get to use it, so that's even better. As full video, no slides today, so that's kind of fun. So I want to talk about that in the second segment. But first things first, there were two events last week. No, not the weekend, but last week. There were the Mayweather workouts, and then there was, that was on a Wednesday, and then on Friday at the UFC Performance Institute, there was McGregor's workout. And what's interesting is that McGregor's workout is being somewhat mocked, and I kind of want to defend him here a little bit. People always ask me after workouts like this, or people you ask each other in the fans and friends and just casual observers, hey, what did you make of the workout? And I would say that the good news is that there's not much bad news. In either case, there's not a lot you can look at and say this looked bad, this looked terrible, or there was some kind of obvious red flag. People who say there was an obvious red flag at McGregor's workout, I really don't know what they're talking about. I didn't see that at all. In Mayweather's workout, he went for a very long time, took a long time to get started, took a long time to get through it, took a long time to end, but it was a standard Mayweather workout. He looks to be, for age 40, in absolutely tremendous condition, and I expect him to perform ably on the 26th of August. I guess we'll have to see, but there's not a whole lot you can read one way or the other, but what is reasonably there tells a similar story of what we know from Floyd. In the McGregor workout, I thought he looked fine on the bag. He looked to be in tremendous physical condition, 154 pounds. Suits him just fine. There were some people mocking the sort of an arm noodling that he does, and I really don't know why people do that. And I'll say this, a lot of people mocked a lot of the stuff he was doing with Ido Portal generally, and especially, I forget which fight where you really saw it come into play. Was it the Mendez fight? You have to remember why he did that. And part of why he did that was, one, he was cutting a lot of weight, so he needed to stay active all the time without killing his body. Now, he's not cutting as much weight. This is 154 as opposed to 145, or 140. Yeah, 145, because I don't think he got the 1 pound allowance for that fight. But the point being is, it not only limbers him up in a sort of unusual way, but it's a way for him to work on coordination, motor recruitment. It's a way to almost zone out a little bit, to sort of find these rhythmic motions. And they look a little unusual. And I remember there was this one episode of Embedded where he was bunny hopping, and all of his teammates were bunny hopping behind him, including Gunnar Nelson, I believe Artem Lobov, and maybe Owen Roddy even to an extent. And people mocked this. And what he sort of said after the fact was, it looks dumb. Like, he even admits it doesn't look... It looks very unusual. And then, to an extent, you can have a go at it because of its sort of unconventional, unconventional nature of it. But it does have a real sport-specific need. It does have almost a meditative purpose. And keep in mind, we're 2 weeks away from the fight. I mean, I don't know if all the sparring is done, but certainly most of the hard sparring is done. And finding unique ways to stay in motion, to keep things loose, to find a degree of flexibility that comes with that, to really keep the joints open and just, not heavy use, but still a kind that expands the sort of functional nature, in this particular case, of the shoulder. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. It's a way to sort of be in touch physically with one's own body. It's a way to stay loose. It's a way to keep active. It's a way to, I would say, use what's called active rest in a way. And this is sort of a partly warm-up, part stretching. It looks goofy. It always looks goofy. And you saw Terrence Crawford and other fighters mock you on Instagram today. Not one of them over here. It's not something I do, but I'm not a professional boxer or a professional athlete in any capacity. And I don't know that it works for you, but whatever him and Ido Portal have works for him quite clearly. So he does a lot of those things that look like they're mockable, and I don't really understand that. Now, let me also say something else about this sparring footage here in just a second. But I spent a lot of time after the sparring footage came out of watching what other boxers had to say about it, and watching what other observers in the industry have to say about it. And we'll get to some of that here in just a second. But one thing that sort of occurred to me is, in dismissing McGregor's unconventional movement as part of training anyway, and assessing this fight generally, I still think, and this is not going to sound like a revelatory statement, but I just want to put this out here. I still think that there is a big part of the boxing world that has made peace with MMA, that it is a commercially successful enterprise, that those guys might be, in fact, quite legitimate athletes, but that ultimately they look at MMA as we in MMA might look at, let's say, bare-knuckle boxing, that it's just a lesser version of what we're doing over here. Yes, you have more things over there. You have wrestling, you have kicks, you have jiu-jitsu, things like that, but ultimately that's a lesser enterprise. And to you and me, this might sound like absolutely something crazy, and it is crazy. Not really that they would think that, but those kinds of things would be lingering. Like, go back and look at Jim Gray's interview with my colleague Ariel Helwani. You can hear in that he says things like groin kicks would be something that McGregor might be more accustomed to. Like, I mean, this is not just an unfamiliarity with the body of work that McGregor's turned in, but MMA more generally. And look, not all boxers are the same way about this. Some boxers have, I think, given McGregor some due, some chance, a lot of respect as a warrior. Maybe not like the level of boxing of Mayweather, but they're not nearly as dismissive. I don't want to lay a claim here. All I'm pointing out is a lot of the people currently today who are really pushing this idea that, you know, McGregor's not gonna lay a glove on him, he's going to get thoroughly embarrassed. Look, I don't know what's going to happen on August 26th. I'm really done making any kind of prediction other than I think Mayweather's probably good to win at least 7 rounds. That's really my guess at this point. But I think it'd be very foolish to buy. You need to respect what the boxers have to say about boxing, but I'm detecting that there's a lot of certainty about what's going to happen from people who still harbor ideas about MMA circa 2002. And I thought there'd be a lot less of that at this point. And guys like Andre Ward, they give the Diaz brothers and other MMA fighters their due. And you can name a lot of other boxers that are like that as well. But I am detecting in the response to the sparring vid and in response to the announcement of this fight generally, I think people think that McGregor's going to go in there and look like some kind of, I don't know exactly, not even just an amateur, like some kind of tough man. And look, guys, I don't know. Like I said, I have no idea what's going to happen on the 26th. But I'm wondering if this won't be a bit of a reckoning moment for this notion that McGregor can't box at all. I think we're going to have to rethink that. Well, not us, but I think a lot of these observers who've been sort of saying to themselves, you know, not only will he not win a round, he'll get KO'd himself in 6, and he'll just be so thoroughly embarrassed that he'll never rear his head again. And it feels to me a little bit like I'm just detecting the same vibe from people about McGregor before the Poirier fight that I am in the boxing world. Now, again, this is not the Poirier fight. This is a completely different animal. And there's a lot of reasons to have skepticism about ultimately how he'll perform in terms of winning or losing. But there's just a bit of real certainty coming from a lot of uninformed, intentionally uninformed viewpoints. Okay, now with that out of the way, those workouts, again, in the end, both actually look pretty good in my judgment, so that's fine. Then came the sparring footage, which came out on Friday night. Usually put things out on Friday night you want to bury in terms of just PR, but not in this case. So it was all the rage, and here was my reaction to it. When I first saw it, I think I had a view like most of you did, which is that's a knockdown. That's a knockdown, no doubt about it. And I'm not saying it's not a knockdown. In fact, I don't think I'm challenging that much at all. But I want to go through and look at the footage to see what really did it tell us. What can we really know from looking at, now there's overall 20 seconds. We're going to look at more just like 10, just the 10 related to the knockdown, because there was 2 clips. One where McGregor lands just an absolutely crushing left hand and snaps Paulie's head back. That sort of speaks for itself in a way. I want to look at the knockdown, or the presumed knockdown, to get a little bit more in depth about that. But here's what I want to say. First of all, take a look at this graph. All right, now this is a very crude graph, and it stops at 2200. 2100 plus here on the right side. This is the number of seconds in a 36-minute fight. So if it goes 3 minutes around for 12 rounds, and you look at the number of seconds in that, here's this. Total, in terms of sparring footage, is the one you have on the left here. Just 20. So I just wanted to give a graphic representation of how much we saw. And as you can see, Not that much. 20 seconds is what we know. Here is how much we know existed, because they went 12 rounds. And in fact, I didn't make a graph for this, but if you wanted to, you could add in another 8 rounds on top, and the graph would get even more far apart. He would arguably have only one knockdown in that entire 20 rounds. So what does that mean? Does that mean we can't trust it? Not necessarily. In fact, if you listen to what the other observers there have said, Owen Roddy and others as well, I believe John Kavanaugh spoke about it, saying the rest of the sparring footage goes, there's not a bunch of knockdowns, but it basically goes Conor's way, and they apparently intend on releasing it after the fight. I'd be curious to see it, and I don't think they're bluffing. They're probably right. Like, Conor probably did pretty well. My only point is this: if you have 20 seconds and there's more than 2,100 seconds in this 36-minute interval, it's not necessarily true that 20 seconds is not representative. It could look exactly like that. All we're saying is, to have a better sense of how representative it was, you would need to see more of it. So it could be exactly like the larger data set. It could be nothing like it. All I'm saying is, let's be very careful for now about drawing broad conclusions. We have this amount of information, or really this amount of information, and we have eyewitness testimony. And that probably is the truth, is my sense of things. Probably is the truth. All I'm doing is cautioning you against thinking too much about this and saying that there is, we can make broad, sweeping, definitive conclusions. I think we can lean in certain directions, which is what I plan to do. But I just sort of want to point out here, I'm not in any way suggesting that those who are there who are saying all the sparring looks like this are not telling the truth. They probably are. This could look, this little window could look exactly like this bigger window. Just got to be a little bit careful for now, given our own limited information. So with that being said, let's take a look at the sparring footage and see what we can figure out. All right, there's a few things I want to do here. Again, we have very limited information here, so we're going to be very careful about drawing any kind of broad conclusions. But I think I want to start with let's just look at the video with audio in real time, and let's just see how it looks, and we'll go from there. Ready? So here's the video in real time with audio. Let's roll it. So to me, that looked like a knockdown. Now, watch it one more time, this case, with no audio. No audio on this. Watch it again. See if it changes anything. See if it adds anything. See if you discover anything new. We're going to watch the full clip again, but this time, no audio. Here we go. Okay. So this is what we have. Not a ton of information here. So I'm going to go through this a little bit, not slide by slide, but frame by frame on this one, and see what we can figure out. See what lessons we can draw here, again, from very, very, very limited information, but from other observers there, suggesting that this is pretty representative in terms of who got the better of who. All right, so let's go through this. I'm going to actually just sort of click on this, and you're going to see what happens. So here we go. They're a little far apart, and Paulie kind of jumps into range here. Look, you can see Conor reads it a mile away, right hand slips it, boom. He did an inside slip on Nate Diaz. Here he does a bit of an outside slip, and you can see he reads it all the way. Whoop. He's already turning his body and just slightly getting out of the way, right? So now what does he do? And he's got his hand on the inside here, which I kind of like too, by the way, his left. So let's see what he does as I click out here. He gets out of the way of it, and he's already there in position because Paulie has now, you can see he's fully extended. So he just pops the jab. He's a little too close because he kind of flicks the jab, but it gets Paulie in motion. He rotates, nice little sort of clubbing left. Not a super hard shot, but he's connecting, right? He's finding him. And now Paulie is going to sort of rotate trunk movement here, right? Let's see what he does. Boom. Paulie's going to rotate trunk movement. So now he can find his angle again, standing a orthodox stance, hands down, which is kind of interesting. Is that on purpose? Is that because he's trying to mimic Mayweather? Is that because he's tired? No one really knows. Conor is resetting the angle himself, right? Look where he's standing here. All right, so he's standing, still facing this way, but kind of closer to it. And as they begin to exchange, he pops the left and will look sidestepping to reset the jab angle, which he tries to pop here as he and Paulie come up. I'm not sure who connects here first, but sort of watch here, right? So there's Paulie's glove. It looks like he misses here. And this is McGregor's jab. So did the jab connect and slide? Did they both just cross here and negate each other? I don't know. But this is the punch that is the one in question. So watch Paulie here. Watch this left. Okay, here's Paulie's head right here. And here is the left of McGregor. Let's see what happens. Does he connect or not? Because now look at his jab. Or his cross, I should say. Look where it is. It's over here. So Paulie's head is here. And it gets out of the way. You can see it just here before it connects. I think it just misses, or at least it connects and grazes, or maybe connects and bounces. It's kind of hard to tell exactly what's happening there. And just keep your eye over right here on the elbow of McGregor, right? Because there's more to the story than just this, but okay, that's definitely on top of the head. And then he pops him with a right, boom, and now he goes down. Now, in real time, it doesn't look like the right actually puts him down. In real time, it looks like the right is just there as he's going down, like a little shot at the end. Let's look at this ending sequence here as Conor resets. So he's over here. He's backing up. He resets the jab, tries to throw it. Looks like they kind of negate each other, right? Tries to throw the left. I think it either grazes. I don't think it lands clean is what I'm saying. It might land. It might land. Doesn't land clean, and the hand stays there on top, and then the right, and he goes down. Now, was that a knockdown or was that a pushdown? Let's look at a couple more times, see what else we notice here from both guys, because I know there's more to this clip. The jabs kind of negate each other. He throws. It looks like he misses. Hand stays. He rotates out, pops him with the right on the way down, bink, which is technically dirty boxing, but, I mean, whatever, it doesn't really matter. And he goes down, look at that. Okay, clip ends there. Okay, what did we learn from this one? A couple of things stood out to me. Number one, Conor's the aggressor here by a million miles. He's slipping Paulie's shots. If this is the 11th or 12th round, even the 10th round, I like the energy level that Conor has. Putting together the things in combination. Look at Conor's feet the whole time, man. Whole time. The only time he's flat-footed is when he's anticipating Paulie. Right, here's where the clip starts. Look, now just look at Conor's movement the whole time. Around the cage, around the ring, stays in motion the whole time. So if this is the 11th or 12th round, I like how much cardio he has. I'm not saying he's putting out tremendous power shots, but he's in motion. He's in motion. He's the one moving around Paulie. Paulie's the one chasing a little bit here, right? So keep that in mind. That's one thing I think we see here. Number two, here's something that stands out to me. Paulie falls back, and he's looking. Who's he looking at? Looks to me like he's looking at Cortez, the referee. But then the screen goes black. I want you to notice something here. Here's part of the reason why I think people are like convinced this is a terrible knockdown. Look, Paulie goes to his back, right? It'd be one thing if he just sat to his rear end. What if he had stopped right here? Would you call it a knockdown? You might, but hard to say. But he goes here. Now that doesn't mean that he didn't, that this is some terrible KO and he gets flatlined to the side and is forced to fall that way because his body is flailing. His hands don't go above his head. That's actually a good sign, right? See how they stay there, and he immediately puts them under him. Watch. Let me just watch Paulie's body language. Let's do it without the obstruction. Hang on. See, not much there. Granted, we're putting together a Zapruder film here. Like, where was the shooter on the grassy knoll? Just watch his body language here. Here's the other part about this that we don't have. That's worth acknowledging. We don't have Paulie's reaction after the video goes black, obviously. Look at him here. Now, what if after this, Paulie actually stands up and gets up and looks fine? You would say, was that really a knockdown? Maybe, but if it wasn't a tremendous one. Or does Paulie get up and look a little bit wobbly on his legs? Then you would say, wow, he actually got crushed there a little bit. Maybe that shot landed more than we thought. Maybe this accumulation was finally the bit that pushed him over. Maybe it was a little bit of a push, but he was so worn down with shots that it didn't take much for him to fall, and that's why he fell to his back, and when he got up, you could see he was on wobbly legs. Here's my point. We don't actually know the reaction right here. That's missing. And I think how Paulie would have stood up from that would have told us a lot. It really would have told us a lot, and we don't have that. Now, here's something else to sort of point out, right? Here we go back here. This is how it looks in real time. Boom, throws the right, slips, pops him with a jab, a little bit of a clubbing left, turns the corner, boom, the jab's kind of cross. Look at the leg position of McGregor here. I'm trying to ignore this thing here. He's constantly finding that outside angle to set up that left hand. Right, Paulie is trying to be the. You can allow that if you're faster than the other guy. You can actually allow him lead foot positioning when you're two opposite stance fighters. If the person who is giving up that lead foot is quicker, and you saw him try to meet that jab. Look at Paulie try and read that jab. Boom, he comes around. McGregor tries to throw. Paulie gets his punch up there pretty quick. Actually, pretty good job by Paulie in that sense of negating it. And then you saw that left hand come over again. Does it land? Does it not? Hard to see. Right there. So this is the key slide to me. Hard to see because you can see it hooks after that and then does come on the back of the head. It is sitting there. Now, how heavy is it sitting there? I don't know. Maybe he's just resting it there. Maybe he's pushing it down. Don't really know. Here's the other issue for Paulie in terms of gauging his movement. Paulie is sort of rotating here. Look, he trunk movements to the left, tries to jab, tries to slip that, right? So now his feet are a little bit compromised as I click out of this. Are they tangled up like they said it was? Like he said it was? I don't see that exactly. Maybe. But look where the feet are. I can't get much from this camera angle. Here's the other problem with this video. In addition to not seeing Paulie's reaction after the knockdown, which I think would have told us a little bit about it, or at least how devastating it was, we don't really have a good shot of their feet ever. That would have been nice given Paulie's claims. Now, he claims that at first, this was Conor having a bad day and him lashing out. Doesn't really look like that. He claimed at first, I think it was a different round, and then later on claimed it was in the later rounds. Okay, well, if that's the later rounds, Conor's looking pretty good here in terms of his energy level, and his output and his movement. So I don't know. There's a lot of inconsistencies now that have come up in Malignaggi's story. And the other one is about feet positioning. However, I'm just pointing out with the video, it's not exactly clear. And in fact, it looks like McGregor is well outside of it. And this is the other part that sort of caught my attention. It's Paulie's right. So we talked about how they exchange jabs here that look like they get negated, right? Just sort of because they both threw at the same time and they kind of got crossed up. Both then try to throw their cross. Conor goes upstairs. Watch Conor, and we don't know if it lands or not. Maybe it does, maybe it bounces. Hard to say. Doesn't land clean, though, right? Because we saw what landing clean was before when he rocked his head back in that other clip. Here's what I'm looking at. Look at Paulie's cross. Paulie comes to the body, and it looks like he slips. See how it goes past McGregor's body? Maybe it misses. I don't think, if it lands barely. I don't know if it did a lot of good work. He certainly didn't shove it into the back of him, right? And then look how off balance he is here. Like, look at his trunk. Look how to the right, to his own left it is as he throws his right. If it's true that McGregor was pushing a lot of weight down, see, look how close he gets. He's almost like it's his chin, his glove, his knee, and then he gets sort of pushed, or he falls, or he's going that direction anyway. But part of this is not merely the big question here is, does this left land clean? And what is Paulie's, look at Paulie's cross. What's it doing there? It looks like he misses and it throws him like that. And at this point, Conor is on the back of his head. So is it from the push down? Is it from Paulie being off balance? Here's what I can say. Doesn't look to me like there's a ton of foot entanglement here. It looks to me like if there is a push down, it's from Paulie overextending himself, Conor putting a hand there to right turn, and then boom, throw that. Let's look at it from the other angle here. And again, we have no reaction from Paulie other than right there. All right, let's look at it from the other angle. This is to me an even worse angle. So here we are. Remember, they're far apart. Conor reads it, slips. Look at that nice slip, man. Slips it. He rolls. Conor sees the jab, throws the cross. Right? He's now rotating around him. Look at that. Eyes downfield. I'm telling you, man, Conor looks pretty good here. All right? They exchange jabs, which you can't really see. Does it land? Doesn't look like it. Maybe. Hard to tell. Maybe it pops off the shoulder. Hard to see what happens here because you can't see Paul. You can see Paulie's arm is cocked. By the way, you look at Paulie getting marked up. You're asking what that's from. That's from the ropes, probably. I believe that's from the ropes. When they're hard. They're harder than you think. And if your body has not grown accustomed to it, and of course, Paulie has a career in boxing, but appears to be a little bit out of shape here. You can get marked up from doing that. Like if you haven't worn the gi in a long time in jiu-jitsu and then you put the gi back on, you'll take it off and you'll have all these marks all over your, like right on your lats, the back of your neck. on your ribs. It's just because the gi just absolutely gets rubbed up on you. It can really mark you up real nice. The ropes have a similar effect. All right, so then, and you can see Paulie's a little bit out of shape here. The big question is here is the crosses. Look, you can see Conor's left right here, and here's the right of Paulie. Let's see what we can learn just from watching this. You can't see whether the punch lands or not. So it looks to me like it lands a little bit. See that? This is the punch. This is Paulie's head. This is the punch. Paulie definitely reads it and definitely gets out of the way a little bit. But it's hard to know how much. In fact, look at the glove. So this is actually not Paulie's head. I stand corrected. This is a bit of the glove right there. That's the glove. Did it pop him in the back of the head? What happens from here to here? Because there's the glove. You just don't know. You just don't know. Is it possible he popped him there? Absolutely. Is it possible he missed and left it there? Very possible. Now pay attention to this hand from Paulie, right? He goes across. Does it connect? Maybe a little bit on the end, but look how far it goes. And then look what Paulie's doing, looking down. Is Conor pressing him down? Is he off balance? Is he rocked? He tries to right the ship, and then he falls over. And I want to point out something here. He falls over, bink. All right, now look. I can't believe no one has made a slide of this. This to me is like, look at that. Look at Conor's face here. Watch how his face changes. From here, just watch Conor's face. Don't look at anything else. Look at that. How is this not a meme? You know what I mean? Like, how did this not get turned into anything? Look at Conor looking in fantastic shape, right? Dude has obviously been eating and training correctly, smiling, cheesing, right? Because I think he thinks it's a knockdown. And it might actually be a knockdown. I'm just pointing out here. Let's see. Let's watch this other one in real time, see what we can see. All right, let's just watch this in real time. Not a great camera angle. Again, what else are you not seeing? You're also not seeing their feet. These claims of foot entanglement, hard to see here. Let's watch one more time, see what else we can look at here. All right? Boom. Here we go. Paulie comes across with the right. He slips. Conor does. Look at that sweat flying, boy. Jabs him up. Comes across. A bit of a clubbing shot here. Not a very powerful one. Paulie rolls. Resets. Looks up. Conor's waiting for it. Pops the jab. But to his own credit, you can see, look at the jab of Paulie gets in the way. And now what you're paying attention to are these two punches. These are the critical ones. Because the question here is, did this pop Paulie to the point where it hurt him and off-balanced him? Or is it true, I think what Paulie's saying, that this one lands or doesn't, but certainly he throws it with such force in an off-balanced kind of way that it rolls him over. And let's just see what we can find. Boom. See, this is the weird one right here. Why does he go... let me wind this back. Why does he go like this? Look. That. See that? A little push down even further. That little bounce. That little bounce there. I don't know if that's because he's rocked or because he's getting pushed. I really don't know the answer to that. And so you might be saying, well, Luke, well, you said when you first saw it, it was a knockdown. Kind of sounds like you're saying it's a pushdown. Here's what I'm saying if we go all the way back to the front and rewind it a little bit. Number one, what I'm saying, as I said before, we had very little information. Even with these two camera angles, it's hard to tell exactly what we're looking at. I think if you want to believe it's a knockdown, you have plenty of evidence to conclude that. If you want to believe it's a pushdown, I think you have some evidence to conclude that. My guess is it's a little bit of a pushdown. It's a little bit of a knockdown. We'll watch it one more time, beginning to end. Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. And here's the second one. Boom. They're rolling. Okay. Let me just go back here. I cannot believe no one memed this. I really can't. This is like the most hilarious thing in a way. Here's what I believe, fundamentally. Because I think this is sort of like the key point in time is that right here. This is sort of what I don't really know. The two key points are this one. There, what happens with that cross, and then Paulie, what happened with his own cross. This is the crux of the whole thing. I think my point is this. The video is a genius marketing tool because now people are going to believe, who didn't before, that maybe Conor's chances have gone up a little bit, right? There's some of that. Two, the video is just ambiguous enough to let supporters believe it's a vicious knockdown and to let detractors believe that it's a no doubt about it, Paulie got the best of him. This was an unequivocal, dirty pushdown, right? And Cortez doesn't call it a knockdown, but for whatever that's worth. My point is if there had been more camera angles and, a better way to review this more fully, we could make a better determination. In some fights, some might call that a knockdown. In some fights, some might call that a pushdown. Hard to say. My point is this. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter because here's Conor McGregor in, let's say, rounds 9, 10, 11, or 12, somewhere around there, and who looks fresher to you? Who looks like the one who's more upright, making visual calculations? Who looks to you like the guy who's out there putting on his style of boxing on the other guy? I don't know what happened in sparring. Conor's team thinks that Conor got the best of Paulie for just about the entirety of it. Paulie believes the opposite. In fact, Paulie believes there's a knockdown here. And to the point being is, as you examine what visual evidence we have, there is at least some reason to believe that there might be partially a bit of a push here. Maybe even a substantial one, right? I don't know. What I do know is that Conor looks a lot better here and is way more competitive here than I think a lot of people would have ever considered. The real takeaway from this video is, was it a pushdown? Was it a knockdown? People are going to make up their own minds. What you can't say is that while this video evidence is limited, you can't say that Paulie A himself didn't admit that in the first time they sparred for 8 rounds, Conor got the best of it, and that even in this one, Conor did well early, faded a little bit, and came back late. Even if that's the Paulie's interpretation, and that's not the generous one, that at least tells you that Conor is way, way, way more competitive and looks a lot better than a lot of people want to admit. Now, you might say, well, Paulie is, number one, not in their best shape. You can visually inspect him and tell he's not. Usually he's pretty lean. And 2, even if he was, that's not Floyd Mayweather. And that's fine. I completely agree. Those are very, very fair points to make. All you need to do in taking away from this is there is, I think, enough reason to believe, however limited it is, and we don't want to make super broad conclusions, that Conor McGregor is probably, relative to what detractors have said about him, a significantly better boxer. That I think you can say with a fair degree of confidence. Does that mean he'll beat Floyd? I personally don't think so. But as I mentioned before, you've got a lot of people in the boxing world who don't know this guy, who've never seen him fight, who are holding on to archaic ideas. You add that in to the fact that Paulie himself admitted the first 8 rounds didn't go his way, and at the end here, some of his inconsistencies in his story have been exposed, and that he even admitted Conor came on strong late, past the 30-minute mark in their sparring. You add to that, he's the one moving around. I do think some of this is probably a pushdown. But I also think the big takeaway is pushdown, knockdown, it's a little bit of a mix of both maybe. But that Conor, I think, might end up looking a lot better than even, I will admit, I always thought Max Kellerman's he'll never lay a glove on him was ridiculous. But I thought Mayweather might just go out there and absolutely school him. I still think Mayweather's going to win. But I'm also expecting in those first 4 to 6 rounds for McGregor to do some work that might open up some eyes. The lesson from the sparring vid is, there's a lot we don't know. There's a lot that this doesn't clear up. But I'm at least willing to believe, based on an accumulated amount of evidence and perception of biases, McGregor might have a lot more going on here than we think. And last but not least, let's take a look at what's coming up in the week ahead. Nothing of real major significance. Here is what's coming out next weekend. I am still in the process of getting some final interviews for this, but you guys sent me a lot of questions about, hey, what does this mean for technical questions? What does it mean for a boxer to stand this way, an MMA fighter to stand this way, or footwork, or the clinching, or whatever? You sent me a lot of questions, and I'm pitching those to a bunch of different fighters and coaches to get their answers, putting them all together, and that will be a preview for Mayweather McGregor, to an extent anyway, next week. So be on the lookout for that. If you have any more questions, email me, lukethomasnews@gmail.com. I am on Facebook and Instagram as well. Just username Luke Thomas News. You will find me there. Appreciate you guys watching. Give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to MMA Fighting. And almost there. Mayweather McGregor is almost here. Until then, enjoy the fights.